Alright, so Chapter 2, the research process. Keaton defines a theory as a set of interrelated propositions that present a systematic view of phenomena. In common, the propositions are symbols, messages, and meanings. If you look back at some of the past comm classes, we've looked at different advertisements and we've looked at symbols and how they connect to the different theories that we have been learning at the time. There are two types of research thinking, deductive and inductive. The deductive research is where the theory assumes what will happen, and then we research to verify the claims. In inductive, the theory is created by exploring cases or research. So for inductive, the theory is created after the research has been done. Here's a bit more in-depth look at the deductive approach. So they start with a social theory that they find compelling and then test its implications with data. They move from a more general level to a more specific one. A deductive approach to research is one that people typically associate with scientific investigation. The researcher studies what others have done, reads the existing theories, and then tests hypotheses that emerge from those theories. Here's some more details on the inductive research approach. An inductive approach to research, a researcher begins by collecting data that is relevant to his or her topic of interest. Then once the data has been collected, the researcher will step back to look at the data as a whole. And then the researcher looks for patterns, and then they develop a theory to explain the patterns. So here are the differences between the two. Deductive approach is aimed at testing theories which already exist. An inductive approach is concerned with the generation of new theories from the data. An inductive approach makes broad generalizations from specific observations, and it gives new knowledge where deductive approach doesn't because there's already theory there. So, how do we create a theory? First of all, we need to choose something that needs to be understood. Second, find a way to explain why that thing happens. Third, we move from a specific event to something more generalized, and then we think about what should be more interesting to study. And then after we pick our topic, either specific or generalized, we start making predictions for the explanation in step 3. Then we select our focus and we're going to test our theory and then use data to confirm or change the theory. Very important is that the theory is only confirmed after studies using different methods from other people and then they get similar results. And here I found a video about how to create a research question.
So, you have to write a research paper. For some of you, this might mean going to Google, typing in your general topic, and using information from the first 2 or 3 results that you find. For others, this might mean trying to find out everything you possibly can about your topic. Unfortunately, neither of these approaches is likely to get great results. To be done right, research needs to be guided by a focused research question. Without a good research question, you will probably end up with a paper that never really comes together because you didn't have a clear direction. But what exactly is a research question? At the most basic, the research question is just a question related to your topic that needs to be answered. The whole purpose of your research will be to provide an answer to the question. You're probably thinking that this doesn't sound too difficult. If a research question is just a question about your topic, it should be easy to come up with one, right? Well, not exactly. For many students, developing a research question is actually one of the hardest parts of the whole research process. In some cases, a student might not know enough about their topic to even understand the kinds of questions that are possible to ask. Even if the student has some knowledge about the topic, they may still not have a good idea of the whole scope of the topic or of recent developments related to that topic. For this reason, it's usually a good idea to try to do some background research before you try to settle on a specific question. This doesn't have to be extensive or time-consuming. For many of you, simply looking at a Wikipedia article or a few recent news articles related to your topic will be enough to give you some ideas for directions that you want to explore. Once you have a bit of background information, you'll be better able to focus your topic into a good research question. But what makes a question a good research question? There are several things that you need to keep in mind. First, a research question should not be too narrow or too broad. If you could answer your question with a few facts, you're not researching, you're just searching. On the other hand, if you would need to write an entire book to appropriately answer your question, then it's probably not a good question for you either, at least at this level. Your question also needs to be specific. Questions such as, is television a bad influence, is very vague. Which television programs are you talking about? What audience are you talking about? What exactly do you mean by bad? Making your question a bit more precise will give you more direction for your research. A research question should also have some significance. It should be something that interests you, because you will be spending some time with a topic, but it should also be something that other people might find important as well. This doesn't mean that you can't research topics like popular culture or sports or social media. It just means that you need to frame your research in such a way as to make sure the topic is relevant to more than just you. While you want your topic to be significant, you also want to be careful not to ask the types of questions that can't really be answered. Questions such as, why must people suffer, or what happens after we die, are certainly significant to many people, but very difficult to answer. Keep in mind that research papers are not intended to be philosophical treatises. So, as you can see, asking any old question related to your topic won't work. Fortunately, many poor research questions can be transformed into good research questions with only a few tweaks. For example, the question of, why must people suffer, could be transformed into a more focused question, such as, how have major 20th century Christian theologians explained the purpose of human suffering? Finally, you might also want to make your research question a little bit unique or creative. Some topics have already been researched over and over and over, and you might want to avoid those topics if you can. If you do have a common topic, it's often a good idea to try to find a slightly different angle, something that allows you to add your own twist. After all, research should not be about asking questions that have already been answered many times before.
Created using Powtoon.
Alright, so how is the theory used in research process? There are 4 ways in which the theory is used in the research process. It provides pattern for interpreting data, links studies together to help understand the phenomena, provides a framework for understanding the importance of issues, and helps interpret the larger meaning of research findings. Now, how are we going to evaluate our research question? First of all, we're going to ask, is the question clear? Second, is it clear to others? Just because it might be clear to you, if you give it to somebody else, they might not understand it the way that you do. Is it only one question? You don't want to be asking more than one thing when you're doing your research. What part of communication is being looked at? Is there a way to measure the thing that you're looking at? If you can't measure it, it's going to be hard to study it. Is it non-biased? You need to make sure that you're not leaning one way or the other. Can the question be studied within your time and budget constraints? This doesn't really apply to us, but, to other people who have money, can you study within that budget? Who is interested in the answer? And how can people use the information? If people can't use the information, then why is it important? Keys to efficient source searching. Make sure you check the domain using .edu or .gov, because if you use .com or .org, those are owned by people who have their own self-interest. That leads into our second point: who publishes or owns the site? If you're looking at animal abuse, you're not going to want to go to PETA because they kind of exploit pictures and videos of animals that may or may not be 100% true. Is it a personal site? They typically have a tilde, which is that little squiggly mark there. Can you tell who created the site? Make sure you look for contact or about pages to read up and research about who owns the site. Are the author's credentials displayed on the website? This kind of helps you investigate if it's going to be credible or not. What is the purpose of the website? How current is it? If the website is super old, then it may not be reliable. If quotes are present, are there citations to verify the information? Because I can put something in quotes, and if you don't double check it and you take it as true, it could turn out to be false. And then it can skew your whole research. How do you know if you have enough sources? I know some of these are some questions that I ask myself when I'm gathering data. So how much has been written on the issue or question? How relevant is it? Has anything happened to challenge the interpretation of the answers? If you find an old paper, maybe it varies slightly, and then with the times and technology changing, it might not be 100% relevant. Who has done the most work on the issue? Where has research been published? Has it just been put on somebody's website, or has it been published in an academic journal? What aspects of the issue have gotten the most attention? What questions have been answered in the sources that you have? If it doesn't 100% answer your question, should you use the source or not? Should you change your source? What has been ignored? What questions haven't been answered? Are there reasons to replicate the study? Are the findings concrete, or are they a little bit wishy-washy? What other issues have been found while researching this topic? So let's talk about lit reviews. If you've done globalization already, which I'm pretty sure everybody has, we've done lit reviews in that with Dr. Tracy. So lit reviews are used by authors to present literature that supports the formal research questions and hypothesis. When reading articles, you can use some of the same sources as the articles that may help fill in the gaps that you missed. This is when you would go down to the references and citations and find the sources that have a good quote that you can use. Lit reviews interprets, integrates, and analyzes published literature relevant to your study. When writing lit reviews, the problem is usually towards the top of the first paragraph. The body paragraph is used to point out gaps in previous research, develops new arguments, and links previous research together. When you hypothesize something, support for your claim isn't known until the research is finished. And then make sure to distinguish your research questions in the conclusion by either using RQ1 or H1 so that people know which research question you're addressing and they don't mix it up with the other one. So here are my discussion questions for this week's chapter. What do you struggle with when coming up with a research topic, and what do you do to overcome it? The second one is, how do you look for your sources? What do you think you can do to help improve future searches?